If you can.
Okay, so everybody, we are going to be learning about how to make your first song. So this is something that a lot of my students ask me, like, I really just want to get the ball rolling. I want to create my first song, but it can be really intimidating to switch over from your session mode, or session view, which is in what we are in right now, to your arrangement view, which is this view here. So I like to keep my students on session view for as long as possible until they feel comfortable moving over to the other aspect of Ableton, which is our arrangement view. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be just arranging samples to create a song. And you know, this is something really simple that you can apply to any kind of music software that you're using. But today we are going to be using Ableton Live version number 9. So let's just start off with the basics. What kind of song are we going to make today? Well, we are going to make a tech house song, and I have a lot of sample packs pulled up over here with tons of samples that I can use to create my song. Just a quick refresher from last week's course, a sample pack, that's going to be a great tool for you to get started off. You can find them for free, or you can use a paid subscription service like Splice, which is what I'm using right over here. And they have sample packs in every single genre that you can imagine. They have them for every genre of electronic music. They have it for pop, hip hop, rock, jazz. You can find samples for anything that you want to make. But the first step in creating a song is deciding what kind of song do I want to make. So today we're going to make an electronic song, and it's going to be tech house. That is the name of the genre, the subgenre of what we're making. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the BPM, or the beats per minute, the speed of the song. Right up here in this corner, you can see I'm going to adjust the BPM to an appropriate speed for the genre that I'm working with. And that speed is going to be 124 beats per minute. I can just type in 124, press enter, and now all of my samples are going to play in 124 beats per minute. I believe this BPM marker goes all the way down to 30 beats per minute and all the way up to like 1,000 beats per minute. So there's endless possibilities with what you can create. All right, so the second step in creating a song is breaking down the individual elements of the song. And I encourage anyone that's interested in this topic to just listen to a song in the genre that you want to make, and with a pencil and paper, start writing down individual elements that you're hearing in the song. So like maybe when the song starts off, you hear piano, so you'd write down piano. And then all of a sudden you hear some drums. So, you know, write down what kind of drums do you hear? You hear a kick, you hear a snare, you hear some hi-hats, some cymbals. And then maybe there's going to be some vocals in there. If you're listening to an electronic song, there could be all kinds of weird and interesting noises that you don't even recognize. So just, it's good when you're starting to create music is just to develop an ear for breaking down a song. And I promise you'll never listen to music the same way again once you start doing this. You'll be listening to a song on the radio and start being like, oh, I can hear a synth, I can hear vocals, I can hear reverb, and all these different things. So I just encourage my students to start really thinking critically when you're listening to music and start breaking it down in your head. So in a typical tech house song, we're going to have our kick, we're going to have our clap and our hi-hats, all of our drums and things like that. We're going to have usually some other kind of percussive element. And then we're going to have a melody, which could be a synth or a piano. Usually we have some kind of vocal effect in there. And then we're going to have a bass line, which is very important. So I have already set up 5 different audio channels. We might be using more than 5. So the first element that I always start with, no matter what genre that I'm working on, is going to be the kick. So that's the kick drum. That's what's keeping the beat of the song. It's the most important element because it is keeping the beat of the song. So I'm going to go and find a kick loop. So the 3 sample packs I'm going to be using today is this, these 3 from Trademark series right here. There's just a really fantastic, they just make really fantastic quality samples. So I'm going to look for a kick loop. So you can see right here we have some kick loops. And I can now scroll through these and listen to them and pick my favorite. So something I want you to keep in mind about this is that we have, if you can see right over here, we have a key sign next to every loop. And that's pretty typical for sample packs to do that. Not all of them will, but it is pretty typical for them to do that. And the reason is because we want all of our elements to be in the same key, especially our kick and our bass. So a lot of people don't realize that a kick drum actually has a key with it. That's because your kick drum is peaking right at a frequency that coincides with a specific key. And when you have your kick drum in a different key than the rest of your song, it does sound a little wonkus. And when you're just starting out, you might not necessarily have the trained ear to be able to realize that, which is why it's really great to use a sample pack when you're starting out that just has all of the keys already organized for you. So I like this sample. So I'm going to pick this sample and I'm going to drag it into one of these slots right over here on my first column in my first audio track. And I'm going to name this audio track Kick. So there's two different ways you can rename a track. You can either press Command or the Windows key if you're using a PC. Command R for rename. I'm gonna write in Kick. Or you can also right click and select rename as well. Whenever you're right clicking on something and you need to use a control, it has the macro controls for you to the right of what you're trying to do so that you can use a shortcut to do it more easily the next time. All right, so I like this kick, but I'm gonna grab a couple other kicks, and I'm gonna grab all the samples I'm going to be using today are going to be in A flat because we want all of our samples to be in the same key. We're going to create a variety of different songs, but they're not all the samples are gonna sound good together if they're all in different keys. So this is why we're going to be using all A flat today. There's another kick, pretty cool. Here's one I like. Not sure if I'm a fan of that one. I'm gonna check out a different sample pack. I'm gonna go to this second one right here. Oh, more kick loops. Look for more A flat. We don't have any A flat in this one. Let's check out this one over here. So as you can see, this one does not have your samples organized by key like the other two sample packs do. So this would be a sample pack that it's going to be fun to mess around with, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for beginners. But this one actually has percussive samples that are going to be really useful too. Something else to remember is that the most important part of your song that stays in tune is your kick, your vocals, your synths, all the melodic stuff, and your bass line. But the percussive elements themselves can tend to be what's known as atonal. And what atonal means is that they don't really correspond to a key, and that they can be used in pretty much any key song that you want. So we'll be using some percussion samples later. But for now, let's just stick with the 3 kick samples that we've got. And now let's move on to the next element of our song. So the next element of our song is going to be the clap. So I'm going to Command R for rename clap on this audio channel. So the clap happens on the 2 and the 4 of every bar, a bar being 4 beats long. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The clap happens on the 2 and the 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the clap is the first element that provides what's known as the groove of an electronic song. The kick provides the beat, the bass is for keeping time, and the clap and all the other percussive elements provide the groove. It's important to pick a big clap that fills up all of the space that you have You don't want a weak clap. You want to be able to hear that clap. You want it to cut through your mix. So let's find some claps. Now claps, although most of them are atonal, you can have tuned claps. As you can see here, we have 2 different tuned claps. Cool. So I'm going to be using these 2 clap samples. I'm going to check out another sample pack to see if any of these claps fit in the key. And you can see that some of these samples don't have keys next to them. That would suggest that they are atonal. So I can use those in this song. I like this one. All right, moving on. So after I have my kick and my clap and I am happy with them, I move on to my hi-hats. So your main hi-hat groove is going to happen on the and, or the 8th note of each bar. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and to give it again the groove, that sort of bouncy feeling that we're looking for in this type of music. So let's go ahead and check out some of these hats that we have. Very classic sounding hi-hat right there. Let's take a look at some more. I like that one. And I like that one. Cool. So now I'm going to rename this audio channel hats for hi-hats. Cool. So now I'm going to pick some percussive loops that are going to be really helpful in the song. So in addition to your clap and your hats, that provides the basic groove of the song. We want some kind of percussive loop to go along with it too. I'm just gonna go ahead and play for you an example of what our kick, clap, and hat sound like together, just to give you an example of what the bare basic percussion is for a tech house song. So that's the basic groove, and you can hear it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and the clap happening on the 2 and the 4, and the kick keeping the rhythm. So this is just the very basic skeletal structure of a tech house song, what we have right here. But we want more than that. We want to flesh it out a little bit more. So we're going to add some percussive loops. Now, percussive loops tend to be atonal. So I'm not going to be super stickler on the key here in these percussive loops. I'm mostly just looking for a tone or a sound that I enjoy. Although these are tuned, it's not necessary to have your percussive loops be perfectly in tune with the rest of your song. Like that one, groovy. That's fun. Too. So I'm going to rename this audio track percussion. Sometimes I'll abbreviate it perc, PRC. So now let's just give some of these a listen and listen to the grooves that we have so far. A lot of interesting combinations going on right here. So that's what we're looking for. What we're going to be having fun with is creating different combinations of samples until we get the perfect song that we like. So after percussion and hats, clap, and kick, we are now going to be getting into the more melodic aspects of the song. And this is where key does become vitally important. If you don't have your synths or your, whatever you're using for your melodic element in key with your kick and your bass, your vocals, everything else, the song will sound wonkus, and we don't want that. So let's go ahead and check out some of these synth loops over here. And we're looking for synths in the key of A flat. Nice and simple. Cool, like that little bleepy sound. Let's check out another sample pack. Check out some more synth loops. So I'm going to be using this one because it is a G sharp, which is also A flat. Cool. So we have 3 different synths that are in the same key. So let's try and listen to some of these combinations. Cool. So as you can see, we have a lot of really cool combinations here already. So now I'm going to rename this synths. Remember that is Command R or Windows R if you're using a PC. Okay, so now I need, looks like we need to create a new audio track. So in order to create a new audio track, I'm going to press Command T or Windows T if you are using a PC. And this one is going to be for my vocals, or another word for vocals or vocal effects would be Vox, V-O-X, you can see over here. So I'm going to have some cool little vocal loops that I can put in my song. Get tone chart. There we go. All right, so let's take a look at some vocals. That's cool. All right, so as you can see, your Vox, the difference between like Vox and actual like having a singing vocal on your song is that the Vox tends to refer to like vocal special effects, like a one-shot vocal that has had some kind of effect applied to it in order to make it function more like an instrument than it does, or make it function more like a synth than it does like someone's voice in a song. So here's another example. You can see it's definitely based off of a vocal sample, but we have processed it to where it's now a special effect. So here's one. That's cool. And now let's listen to this one. This one. Try a different sample pack. There's some more Vox. Like that. That's really cool. All right, let's go ahead and start listening to these combinations a little bit more. we already have a lot of really, really fun combinations here. So now we're going to create another, our very last, actually, I think this is going to be our very last one that we create. It's going to be our bass channel. So I'm going to create another audio track again by Command T or Windows T if you're using PC. I'm going to rename this bass. So we are going to cap off this song by adding a cool bass line, which is, you know, vitally important to every electronic song. If you don't have a groovy bass line, it's not listenable. So let's find a bass line that we enjoy. And again, although it might sound atonal, your bass does have to be in key with the rest of your song. That is extremely important. If it's not in the right key, it will sound terrible. So we're going to make sure we find a key that is in, we're going to find a bass loop that is in the key of A flat. Let's go searching for one. There's one. Groovy. I like this one too. Grab that one. So what happens if you find a sample you like that isn't in the right key? What you gonna do? Well, we can actually use this software to change the key of a sample that we like and we want to work with. So this is in the key of G, but I want to use it. So I'm going to drag it in here under my bass loops. Now I'm going to double click on the name of the sample. And this is going to pull up what's called the waveform right down here, which is a visual representation of the frequency and decibel level of what you're listening to. So over here, you see we have a lot of interesting controls, and these all are going to affect this bass loop. So I am going to be using my transpose modulation right over here, this little wheel, to change the key of the song. So something to remember is that each one of these numbers represents one semitone. Boosting it, making it higher, is actually making your song sharper, and lowering it is making your song more flat. So you can either raise the pitch or lower the pitch in semitones. So since this song, or this loop, is in the key of G, and we want it to be in the key of A flat, we are going to bring it up one semitone because G is one semitone lower than A flat. And now we're going to listen to the loop. Turn all these other ones off here. Just listen to this one all by itself. So you can tell that now this is in the correct key. So let's do that again. Let's find another another sample that we like. It might not necessarily be in the right key. Let's go up here. I like this one. So this one is in the key of B, which is one semitone, actually A flat, so that would be 1, 2. Look at my keyboard. It's always nice to have a keyboard right here. For an A flat, that's 1, 2, 3. So we are going to be making this 3 semitones higher so that it is in the key, or no, 3 semitones lower so that it is in the key of A flat. So -3 because we are lowering this from B all the way down to A flat. And now let's listen to it. Now that's in the key of A flat. So it really helps when you're correcting your semitones on your samples to have a keyboard right in front of you. I actually right here under me. I know you can't see it, but it's here. And that helps me as well. Just being able to, have that basic music theory knowledge helps me out a lot when I'm arranging my songs based on key, because the key of your song, keeping it all in the same key, is very, very important. Okay, so now comes the fun part. Now we are going to make a song with all of these samples, and we're going to try all the different samples and see what sounds the best to create the best song. So let's start with our kick. Let's try clap. This one. Cool. like this combination of sounds. Everybody has a different opinion, but this is what I think sounds the best as a combination of all these different sounds. So I encourage everybody to go home and pull up whatever software you're using and start playing around with samples. Try and combining them together to create a song that you like. Remember that you can find these sample packs for free. All you have to do is Google sample pack plus the name of whatever genre that you want to work on. And there are endless options out there. There are literally, I mean, probably tens of thousands of sample packs that exist. So there's no shortage of samples of material that you can use to create your music. And this can be applied to not just this genre, which is tech house, but this can be applied to all different genres. And next week we are going to be working on doing this, but in a different genre, to just show you guys all the variations that we can come up with this. So that pretty much is it for today. I'm now going to open up the floor if anyone has any questions.
Okay, that was awesome. That was that was really cool. I like how I like how the format was different this week than last week. Last week is definitely more of a class for me. So if you didn't catch last week's class, get that one, because that gets you the idea of actually being able to see the drum kits. But I like how this one was diving much more meatier into like what's happening. So one of the questions that came in is, what program are we using? I typed out Ableton, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on the program today.
So we are using Ableton Live version 9. It is not the most recent version of the software. I do plan on upgrading in the next few weeks, but these principles apply pretty much the exact same from version 9 to version 10. So if you do get the latest version of Ableton, it pretty much is going to look and behave the exact same on your session view.
Okay, very cool. And then I know that we've talked about this every week, but just for the redundancy of it, and you mentioned it throughout the class that a lot of these concepts, and just for anybody watching, that it does apply. Like, it's the cool thing in what you've explained to me is that this is kind of a generalized knowledge. Yes, it's special to like this program, but the concepts that we're doing are very universal to any concept or any program like GarageBand or a software that's of a lesser, it's going to have fewer options than what Ableton is going to do, which Ableton is more professional, grade, whereas like GarageBand is more, kind of sums it up, something that you're going to be doing on your own in your garage. There's, what's the other really popular software that's out there? There's Ableton and there's
Pro Tools, Logic,
Pro Tools.
Pro Tools, yeah. Pro Tools is more for tracking live audio. It's used professionally in studios and it requires a lot of hardware to go with it. So it's not usually something I would recommend for beginners to use.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so if anybody is looking for this is Ableton for the software that we're using today. Again, you don't have to have Ableton, but if you want to get it, it would work really, really well for this. And then obviously Ms. Shannon is pro and can help you answer all Ableton questions and every other question, but this was fantastic. So it looks like that is it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in on Facebook. We will see you guys next week on Friday. If you tuned in, if you want to collect this time as Summer Olympic practice minutes, you do have to log into the classroom, into the Zoom classroom. If you're watching on Facebook, we're so happy to have you there and so glad that you did watch and participate. But if you would like to log actual practice minutes inside the competition, log in. I'll get you the link for the Zoom class next week. You can participate, ask questions in real time to Ms. Shannon, and she is happy to answer those. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.